It was a Saturday morning in the Costco parking lot. As you stepped out of your shiny new pickup truck, you noticed a friend from high school closing the door of the vehicle parked right next to yours, an old one with faded silver door handles and a body covered in small scratches. You recognized it immediately as a 2016 Honda CR-V, not because you know much about cars, but because you owned that exact model 10 years ago. Almost instantly, a thought crossed your mind. Maybe he's been unemployed for months. His life must be pretty difficult right now. If that's what you thought, that would be completely normal. Most people would think the same thing. But what people don't know is that the assets he owns are worth several $1,000,000, largely thanks to compound interest working relentlessly over the years, and partly because of some early investments in startup companies. He chooses to drive that old car not because he can't afford a new one, it's because that is his choice. It is also the same approach he used to build wealth while working ordinary jobs. So why do wealthy people intentionally look poor? The answer to that question is the entire subject of this video. Because intentionally appearing poor turns out to be one of the most important financial moves a person can make, and truly wealthy people figured that out a long time ago. First, you need to understand that there are two financial games being played in every city. Most people assume that everyone around them is playing the same financial game, but they are not. There are two completely different games happening simultaneously within the same economy, the same neighborhoods, and the same parking lots. The problem is that one of those games is invisible unless you know what to look for. The first game is the one most people enter by default. Its scoreboard is visible. The car, the apartment, the neighborhood, the photos on social media. Every dollar that goes outward sends some kind of signal about your status. The goal, whether consciously or not, is to look like someone who has made it. The payments are simply the price of admission. The second game has an entirely different scoreboard: net worth, financial margin, and the number of years you could stop working without your life falling apart. None of those things show up in a parking lot. None of them can be read by a stranger with a quick glance. The people playing this game often appear from the outside as if they are merely getting by. This is the mechanism most people miss. These two games pull in opposite directions. Every dollar that goes into the scoreboard of the first game is a dollar that cannot go into the second. The more aggressively you optimize for appearances, the slower you build real wealth. The more you look like you're simply living on enough, the faster you build something that is actually real. This is not a call to give up the things you genuinely value. It is a description of a choice that most people are making without ever realizing they have made it. To make the numbers more concrete, meet Derek. He's 35 years old and earns $90,000 a year. He leases an Audi and rents an apartment in a zip code he chose because of what it says about who he is. By every visible measure, Derek looks like someone who has figured out how to win the game of life. Derek takes home about $5,800 a month after taxes. His rent is $2,100. His car payment and insurance add up to $1,150. Subscription services take another $219. The minimum payment on a credit card balance that has been around since 2021 takes another $280. Food, utilities, and gas, $900. Before Derek makes a single discretionary spending decision, $4,649 has already been allocated. What remains is $1,151. In theory, all of that remaining money would go into his retirement account. In reality, his contribution to his retirement account is only $300 per month, roughly 4% before taxes. Derek is not reckless. He's never bought a lottery ticket. He's simply playing a game that is far more expensive than it appears. The car is the visible part. It is not the most expensive part. The apartment is. Derek pays $2,100 for a two-bedroom apartment, but if he chose a comparable apartment 4 zip codes away, the rent would just be $1,400. That $700 monthly difference, if invested for 30 years at 8% return, would grow into approximately $1,043,000. Housing costs never arrive alone. A nicer building creates pressure to furnish it in a way that matches what the building implies. A more expensive neighborhood carries a social price tag. Dinners out, weekend plans, and subtle expectations that your lifestyle should match your address. Researchers call this the spillover effect. One visible upgrade quietly pulls additional spending behind it. A conservative estimate is $400 per month. That $400 monthly spillover, if invested for 30 years at 8% return, would grow into approximately $569,000. One housing decision, a $700 rent difference, and the $400 of secondary costs it creates, compounded over 30 years, represents more than $1.6 million in wealth left on the table. This is not a story about weak people making bad decisions. The people playing game one are often intelligent, hardworking, and financially literate. So why are they making the mistake? For most of human history, visible resources were synonymous with survival advantage. The people who owned the most land could feed the most people. The tribe with the most food attracted the most members. Status signals were not vanity, they were information. Information about who was worth following, who was worth forming alliances with, and who would still be standing when the next season arrived. That mechanism in our brains has never changed. The environment changed, the instinct did not. Today's consumer economy doesn't just make use of this instinct, it studies it and exploits it with remarkable precision. Economists have a name for products whose price is part of their appeal: Veblen goods, products for which higher prices increase desirability. Luxury cars, larger homes, prestigious watches. Their primary function is often not utility, but the signal they send. Beneath that lies another mechanism, the hedonic treadmill. The upgrade arrives, satisfaction spikes, then fades. Within 6 to 12 months, the leased Audi becomes just a car. The luxury apartment becomes just home. The excitement resets, but the payment does not, so the next upgrade becomes necessary to recreate the feeling that the previous upgrade delivered only temporarily. You may already be thinking, I work hard, I deserve nice things. That's true. Nothing here argues otherwise. The question is not whether you deserve them. The question is whether you're buying them because you genuinely want them or because the system has designed your default settings around buying them. There is a massive difference between an intentional choice and a conditioned reflex. Only one of those truly belongs to you. Researchers who studied millionaires found something most people don't expect. The median millionaire drives a vehicle worth roughly $31,366. Not a status signaling SUV, not a vehicle chosen because of what it says about the driver. A vehicle worth roughly 1/3 of the average annual household income, paid off, maintained, and used until replacing it becomes financially rational. Other research found that 8 out of 10 millionaires drive non-luxury vehicles. The two who drive luxury vehicles are the ones everyone imagines when they picture a millionaire. The other 8 are the ones who actually have the money. The correlation between income and net worth is far weaker than most people assume. High-income, high-spending individuals accumulate wealth slowly. Moderate income, moderate-spending individuals accumulate wealth steadily. Income is not the deciding variable. Here's what that looks like with the same $90,000 salary. Save 20%, or $18,000 per year. Invest it at an 8% return for 20 years, and you end up with approximately $824,000. Save 10%, or $9,000 per year. Invested under the same conditions, and you end up with approximately $412,000. Same salary, same market, same 20 years. The gap is $412,000, created entirely by a single number, the savings rate. Now let's look at someone playing game 2. Derek has a coworker named Alan. Same company, same $90,000 salary. No one at work knows much about Alan's finances. People see the older CRV he drives and assume he's just getting by. Alan brings home about $5,800 per month after taxes. The mortgage on his three-bedroom house is $1,680. He bought in an area chosen for the school system, not the zip code. His car has no payment, only insurance, $140. His subscriptions total $67 because he regularly reviews them. Food, utilities, and gas, $850. Before discretionary spending, Alan has committed only $2,737. The amount remaining is $3,063. His retirement contribution is 18%, and he increases it automatically whenever he receives a raise. He doesn't think about it anymore. The system runs itself. About $800 goes toward discretionary spending, things he genuinely wants. The remaining $2,263 is automatically transferred into an investment account every month. His net worth is $320,000 at age 35, built from 10 years of consistent saving. Not a windfall, not an inheritance, just the mathematics of redirecting income before lifestyle inflation can claim it. No one at work knows this. The assumptions people make about him are off by $320,000. If Alan lost his job tomorrow, he has roughly 1 year of living expenses set aside, about $42,000 in cash reserves. Meanwhile, his rest of his investments continue compounding in the background. That means 12 months to find the right position, 12 months to negotiate without desperation, 12 months to reject the wrong opportunity and wait for the right one. Derek's smaller net worth gives him far less flexibility. Enough time to search, but not enough time to be highly selective. The dented CRV is not a consolation prize. It is evidence of a different set of priorities, and those priorities produced $320,000 over a decade. Most people who drive ordinary cars do so because they cannot afford another option. A much smaller group does it because they ran the numbers and decided the freedom on the other side was worth more than the signal an upgrade would send. The numbers already show that looking poor can help create wealth. The next question is why? There are 3 mechanisms, and they compound on top of one another. The first is the compounding gap. Every dollar not spent on a depreciating asset goes somewhere else. Derek's car payment is $767 per month. Alan doesn't have that payment. If $767 were invested for 20 years at 8% return, it would grow to approximately $452,000. Over 30 years, approximately $1,143,000. The same money is producing 2 different outcomes. One is financing consumption, the other is financing freedom. The second mechanism is what happens when you stop using purchases to signal status. At some point, Alan stopped optimizing spending around what other people would conclude from it. This is not a moral achievement, it is a mathematical one. Every dollar spent on a signal is a dollar that cannot compound. Behavioral economists call this clarity of enough, knowing what is actually required for your life to feel fulfilling rather than what your life is supposed to look like. Without that clarity, lifestyle inflation becomes the default. Every raise creates a new spending ceiling. With clarity, the raise has somewhere else to go. The third mechanism is freedom. When Alan has a year of expenses in reserve and investments compounding in the background, every decision becomes different. He negotiates differently because he can walk away. He endures differently because he isn't trapped. He chooses differently because the choice genuinely belongs to him. Derek earns the same income, but Alan has more real freedom. The gap between visible consumption and real freedom is the entire game. What does moving from Derek's side to Alan's side actually look like? Start with the car. The question is not whether you can afford the payment. The question is what that payment is costing you over time. Take your total monthly vehicle cost, including the payment, insurance, and fuel, multiply it by 360. That's what the next 30 years of that decision look like in dollars that will not be available for investment. For raises, automatically redirect the first 50% before your lifestyle adapts. Increase your retirement contribution rate the same week the raise takes effect, not later. The difference often comes down to the timing of a single administrative change. For subscriptions, open your bank statement, read every line item, cancel anything for which you cannot immediately provide a specific reason to keep. Then review it again once a year. And for status signals, the next time you're about to make a purchase, partly because of how it will look to coworkers, neighbors, or strangers, ask yourself one question. Is this something I genuinely want, or is this something Game 1 requires? Those are two different questions, and the answer is not always the same. The person who consistently asks that second question before spending is already playing a different game from the one the parking lot suggests.